There is a silence more deafening than rage. A quiet withdrawal that echoes louder than confrontation. When you step back, not out of fear, not out of loss, but from a place of deep, unmoving power, something happens. People shift. They notice. They question. Welcome to the everlasting Stoic. This is not just another video telling you how to react. It's a guide on how to not react and still lead the way. Today we explore the profound power of stepping back, not as surrender but as a strategy. To make them question everything, to shake assumptions, to rebuild power in stillness. In this world of noise, movement, and desperation, stepping back is rebellion, and it's mastery. If you find value in the kind of depth we uncover here, in learning to move through life with poise, strength, and intentional silence, then take a moment to support this journey. Subscribe, like, and drop a comment below as we dive into this practice of radical restraint. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. Breaking their assumptions. Assumptions are fragile things. They are built from whispers, glances, expectations, and history. They are reinforced through routine, through patterns of interaction, and through the invisible contract we sign every time we show up the same way. The moment you break that pattern, the moment you do not behave the way they thought you would, the foundation beneath their certainty begins to crack. People come to believe they know you. They believe they understand how you will respond. If you've always texted back right away, they assume you always will. If you've always been the one to apologize first, they begin to expect it. If you've been emotionally available at the drop of a hat, they begin to rely on that availability like the rising sun. And this, over time, becomes a quiet trap, not a malicious one, but a suffocating one. A system in which your predictability becomes your prison. But when you step back, when you become less available, less reactive, more inward, the illusion fractures. They begin to question not only where you are, but who you truly are. They revisit their image of you, and they realize how much of it was built on the comfort of routine, not the reality of depth. Your silence is not absence. It is a presence so vast that it cannot be filled with noise. There is power in disrupting a rhythm. When someone expects you to reach out, and you do not. When someone expects your forgiveness, and you pause. When someone assumes you'll explain yourself, and you simply won't. That disruption forces them to look inward, to reflect, to consider maybe they overstepped, maybe they underestimated, maybe they never really knew you at all. Breaking assumptions does not require anger. It does not require confrontation. It requires only a shift, a pause, a new pattern. It is not about withholding affection or playing games. It is about reclaiming your presence as something intentional, not reactive, something rare, something sovereign. This is especially true in relationships, romantic, familial, or even professional. We are creatures of habit, and we train others how to treat us. Every time we make ourselves endlessly available, we teach them that our time is not valuable. Every time we explain ourselves without being asked, we suggest we owe an explanation. Every time we rush to mend the bridge, we imply we're the ones who broke it. When you break that pattern, gracefully, silently, you create space. And in that space, truth is revealed. Do not fear the discomfort that arises when you break someone's assumption of you. That discomfort is clarity. That silence is recalibration. They are being reintroduced to your value. a value that was buried under routine. Let them sit with the shift. Let them wonder why the ground beneath their feet feels different. Let them think. This is the first step of stepping back, the disruption. You are not being cold. You are being conscious. You are not abandoning. You are evolving. Let them watch. Let them reflect. Let them come to their own conclusions. And let those conclusions shift the narrative. Because in the end, people don't respect what is always there, always known, always expected. They respect the mystery, the surprise, the sudden reminder that you are not to be assumed, you are to be experienced. And that experience now requires more intention than they're used to. Take a moment and reflect. When was the last time you broke a pattern that no longer served you? When was the last time you disrupted someone's idea of you? Not with aggression, but with elegance. If you have a story like that, a moment where silence or distance changed everything, share it in the comments. Let others witness how powerful it can be to step back. Chapter 2. Quiet power over words. Words are cheap when they come too often. Too easily, too loudly. We live in an era where everyone speaks, but few listen, and even fewer understand the weight of silence. In a world flooded with opinions, reactions, and constant noise, the one who does not speak becomes the one who holds power. You do not need to argue to be right. You do not need to explain to be understood. The moment you grasp that truth, you begin to understand the Stoic art of restraint, of sitting in your stillness while others unravel themselves in their desperate attempts to control the narrative. Silence, when chosen with purpose, becomes a mirror. People see themselves in it, their actions, their intentions, their flaws. It is unsettling, and that is the point. When someone expects a reaction, a defensive statement, a sharp rebuttal, an emotional plea, and all they are met with is calm quietude, they are forced to confront their own behavior. Your silence says more than your words ever could. It implies discernment, it implies composure, and it implies that their chaos does not deserve to disrupt your center. The ancient Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that people would speak, act, and behave poorly, and that it was not his duty to correct them. It was his duty to remain aligned with his own principles. Seneca advised that time is the one resource we can never reclaim, and wasting it on arguments, on empty conversations, on defending oneself to those who refuse to understand, is the height of foolishness. You must understand. Silence is not passivity. It is presence without performance. It is strength without spectacle. To choose silence is to choose control over yourself, your emotions, and the energy you invest. Think of the last time you were baited into a conversation you didn't want to have. The last time someone pushed, provoked, or pleaded, and you felt that familiar rise, that impulse to respond. And maybe you did. Maybe you explained yourself. Maybe you tried to reason. Maybe you tried to defend, but did it change anything? Or did it only exhaust you? Now imagine this instead. You listen. You breathe. And then you say nothing. You let them speak. You let them project. You let them assume. And then you walk away, having said not a word, but leaving them with everything to think about. Quiet power unnerves people. It challenges the very core of their behavior. Because most people rely on emotional response to validate their own emotions. If they are cruel and you get angry, they feel justified. If they are dismissive and you chase, they feel superior. If they are manipulative and you explain, they feel clever. But if you stay calm, collected, and absent of any need to perform, they are left alone with themselves. And that is not a place many people enjoy. There is, of course, a time to speak, a time to express, a time to clarify. But that time should be earned, not assumed. Your voice should be rare enough to carry weight. When people know you only speak when it matters, they will listen when you do. Until then, let silence be your first language. Let your stillness be your message. In this way, you reclaim your energy. You protect your peace. You become unmoved. And when you are unmoved, you are untouchable. If you've ever practiced this, the art of responding with stillness instead of sound, I invite you to share that moment below. Did it shift the dynamic? Did it teach you something about yourself or about them? Write it below. Not for validation, but for reflection. Chapter 3. The Strength of Absence. There is a kind of presence that cannot be felt until it vanishes. You may not notice the warmth of the sun until the clouds roll in. You may not cherish breath until it's caught in your throat. And you may not understand the depth of someone's impact until they are no longer within reach. Absence, when used with intention, carries a power that few dare to wield. It's not avoidance. It's not neglect. It's not manipulation. It is a deliberate return to yourself, a retreat into your own gravity. When you step away, not in haste, not in anger, but in calm sovereignty, you force others to confront what your presence truly meant. The mistake many make is thinking that constant availability increases connection. That the more they show up, the more they speak, the more they give, the more they will be loved. But in truth, constant presence often leads to a kind of quiet erasure. People stop noticing. They stop listening. They take for granted what has always been there. It's not their fault. It's human nature. Familiarity dulls the edge of appreciation, but absence sharpens it again. When you are no longer always there, always answering, always soothing, always showing up first, your value recalibrates. Suddenly, your silence is not a void. It is a message that says, I have chosen myself for a time. I am not abandoning. I am balancing. Let's be clear. The strength of absence is not about teaching someone a lesson. It's not about punishing or withdrawing affection to manipulate an outcome. That is a game of control, and it has no place in Stoic practice. The true strength of absence is about alignment. It is about stepping back, not to make a point, but to find your point of origin, to return to what anchors you, to breathe without needing to perform, to rediscover the sound of your own thoughts without them being drowned in the expectations of another. In this way, your absence becomes a mirror, and the person on the other side begins to see things differently. They begin to ask themselves questions they didn't know they had. Why don't I feel them like I used to? Where have they gone? What did I overlook? These are not cruel questions. They are necessary ones. Because awareness is rarely born in the presence of noise. It often arrives in the quiet aftermath, the sacred hush where understanding is finally free to emerge. But perhaps more importantly, absence does not only reveal your value to them, it reveals your value to you. In that space where you no longer perform, no longer explain, no longer shape yourself to be more palatable or convenient, you remember who you were before the expectations. You return to the original frequency of your being, the voice beneath the noise, the needs beneath the habits, the power beneath the people-pleasing. And in that stillness, something awakens. You may find that the situation you stepped back from no longer fits you. You may find that the connection was never mutual, only habitual. Or you may find that, yes, there is still love, still meaning, but it must now be met with reciprocity and maturity, not dependence. This is the paradox. By stepping back, you do not create distance, you create clarity. Clarity that leads to either deeper connection or graceful release. Both are gifts. Both are growth. Both are rooted in truth. So let them feel your absence. Let it ripple through their assumptions. Let it unsettle the rhythm. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity, because you deserve to be felt when you are there. And if your absence does not echo, then your presence was never truly received. If you've ever experienced this, the shift that happens when you stop showing up on command, share it. What did you learn? What changed? And what did that absence reveal to you? Chapter 4. Freedom through distance. There is something liberating about distance. It untangles the knots. It clears the fog. It returns your soul to its natural pace. In closeness, we often blur. Boundaries bend. Identities fuse. The lines that once defined us, our values, our priorities, our sense of direction, become faint. We compromise in tiny, invisible ways. At first, it feels like love, like care, like intimacy. But over time, if unchecked, it becomes something else. Obligation, confusion, resentment. That is why distance is not always a sign of disconnection. Sometimes it is the only way to reconnect with ourselves, with truth, with the core of what really matters. When we talk about stepping back, it is easy to interpret it as a reaction, a retreat. But what if we reframed it as a revolution? What if distance was not the end of something, but the beginning of something far more honest? Because here's the truth. Only through space can we see things as they are, not as we wish them to be. In distance, the mask slips. Without the constant back and forth, the distractions, the micro-dramas, you begin to notice what was real and what was just noise. You begin to see the other person not through the lens of emotional urgency, but through the clarity of perspective. Do they truly respect you, or do they merely benefit from your proximity? Do they value your presence, or have they simply grown comfortable in its convenience? And on the other side of that question, who are you when you are not orbiting someone else's needs? There is profound peace in reclaiming your autonomy. To wake up and not wonder how someone else feels. To go to sleep without replaying the same tired script in your head. To walk through your day with your shoulders relaxed, your breath steady, your energy unanchored from another's chaos. This is not selfish. It is sacred, because in that space you remember, you are allowed to exist without explanation. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are not here to chase closure, or to keep conversations alive just so no one feels discomfort. You are here to grow, to become, to honor the truth, even when that truth means creating distance from what once felt essential. But distance is not always permanent. Sometimes it is the intermission that allows the story to breathe. It gives you both a moment to step outside the narrative and ask, is this still the story I want to tell? And if so, how can it be told with more grace, with more honesty, with more mutual respect? Because if two people are truly aligned, distance will not destroy them. It will refine them. But if the bond was built on dependency, illusion, or fear, distance will reveal that too. Either way, it brings truth. And truth, even when painful, is the highest form of love. There is a dignity in being alone without being lonely. In choosing solitude not out of bitterness but out of deep self-trust. It is in this sacred solitude that you hear your own thoughts more clearly, that your inner voice, once drowned by the constant demands of closeness, begins to speak again, soft at first, then stronger, then undeniable. It may say, "You've given enough," or "You need to be seen in your entirety, not just your usefulness," or "You are ready for something more whole." Whatever it whispers, listen. Because the voice that arises in distance is often the one that gets ignored when you're too close. So do not fear the space. Do not rush to fill the silence. Do not apologize for choosing to step back, to take a breath, to realign. Distance, when embraced with intention, is not abandonment. It is an act of respect for yourself and for the connection. It is a sign that you are no longer living on autopilot. You are living awake. Have you ever found clarity through distance? A moment where stepping away showed you more than staying close ever could? If so, I invite you to share that story. Someone may be walking the same path, and your words might be the light they need. Chapter 5: Reflecting their actions. Human beings rarely see themselves clearly. They walk through life carrying a mirror pointed outward, analyzing others, judging their behaviors, measuring their worth, all the while blind to the patterns they repeat themselves. But when that mirror is turned toward them, when they're forced to look at who they've been, how they've treated someone, what they've normalized, discomfort arises. That discomfort, if not met with defensiveness, can lead to transformation. And sometimes the only thing strong enough to turn the mirror around is your silence. Reflecting someone's actions does not require explanation. It does not require confrontation. It requires presence without permission, behavior without blame. It means stopping the cycle, not by fighting it, but by stepping out of it completely, by no longer engaging in the dance they've come to expect. You do not need to teach them a lesson. You simply stop playing your old role. If they speak in half-truths and you used to beg for clarity, now you don't chase. If they give you crumbs and you once made a feast out of them, now you go hungry instead. If they disappear without warning, and once you sent paragraphs, now you send silence. You mirror back what they have offered, but not from a place of resentment, from awareness. This is the key. Reflection without revenge. It's not tit for tat. It's not a silent war. It's a calm withdrawal from the performance. And in that absence of effort, something powerful happens. They begin to see themselves. When you stop overcompensating, they notice the gap. When you stop initiating, they feel the quiet. When you stop explaining, they're left alone with their assumptions. It is only in this void, this emotional vacuum, that some people begin to question what they've contributed. Have they been present? Have they been kind? Have they taken more than they've given? But more importantly, what does it say about them if they don't notice your absence at all? The truth is, many people live inside patterns they've never questioned. They repeat behaviors inherited from childhood, modeled by others, shaped by insecurity or pride. They don't even know they're acting in harmful or dismissive ways. Not until something breaks the rhythm, not until someone steps back. You can speak 100 times and not be heard, but withdraw once, and the silence echoes louder than any plea. This is not cruelty. This is grace with boundaries. It is restraint with a spine. It is choosing not to fix what you didn't break. And it forces others to do the one thing most people avoid: reflect, and sometimes they won't like what they see. They'll push back, accuse you of changing, of being distant, cold. But that is projection. What they are really feeling is the absence of your accommodation. And it's uncomfortable, as it should be. Growth often begins in the friction of unmet expectations. Let them feel that friction, because in the end, you are not responsible for how others interpret your boundaries. You are only responsible for maintaining them. If your silence makes someone uncomfortable, it is not the silence that hurts. It is what that silence reveals about their behavior. If your stillness creates tension, it is not the stillness that is harmful. It is the contrast between your peace and their pattern. In reflecting someone's actions, you are not seeking validation. You are not hoping they will come running. You are stepping into a higher form of love, one that does not require you to be mistreated in order to be meaningful. Let your behavior speak for you. Let your absence reveal what your words could not. And let the consequences fall where they may. Not as punishment, but as clarity. If you've ever chosen to mirror someone's treatment back to them, calmly without bitterness, and watched what unfolded, consider sharing it in the comments. There's a unique power in those quiet moments when we finally say nothing, and yet say everything. Chapter 6. Growing without noise. In a world obsessed with announcements, with digital displays of transformation, with declarations of "look at me now," there is something exquisitely rare about the person who grows in silence, who evolves not with a trumpet, but with a whisper, who does not seek applause for their becoming, but chooses instead to become anyway. Growth is not always visible. It does not always come with a physical change, a career leap, or a shiny milestone. Sometimes it looks like this: saying no when you once said yes, just to be liked. Walking away without the need to explain. Choosing a peaceful evening alone over a desperate attempt to be seen. Silently forgiving yourself for staying too long. That is growth. Quiet, inward, sacred. But the modern world does not reward this kind of evolution. It rewards spectacle. You are taught to show your healing, to brand your strength, to wrap your self-worth in metrics and feedback. But true Stoic strength knows better. It knows that validation born from performance is fleeting, that real change does not need a witness, only integrity. To grow without noise is to reclaim your transformation as something private. It is to shift the locus of approval from the outside world to your own soul. It means learning not to share every thought the moment you have it. Not because you're hiding, but because you're incubating, letting it ripen, protecting the fragile new version of yourself until it is strong enough to stand in the light. You don't owe the world access to your process. You owe yourself presence in it. It's in the quiet hours, the mornings when no one's watching, the nights when the old habits whisper, that the real work happens. Not in the glow of attention, but in the grit of repetition. When you say no to an impulse, when you pause before reacting, when you don't send that message, when you sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. No one applauds you. No one sees. But that moment, that's the root of self-mastery. And here's what happens. In time, people notice anyway. They don't know what changed, but they feel it. The way you carry yourself. The way you speak less, but mean more. The way you no longer ask for the bare minimum. Because you no longer believe you deserve less. Your silence becomes your statement. Your composure, your confession. You no longer need to tell people you've changed. You no longer need to prove anything. You simply are different. And that difference, when rooted in peace, is unshakable. This is where Stoicism finds its fullest form, not in Stoic performance, not in Stoic performance, not in cold detachment, but in unseen alignment. You are no longer driven by the desire to be understood. You are moved by something deeper, the desire to live in harmony with your principles, regardless of who is watching. So ask yourself, can you grow without the world watching? Can you find satisfaction not in being perceived as wise, but in becoming wise, even in private? Can you endure the discomfort of quiet change without seeking the reward of external affirmation? If the answer is yes, or if you're learning to say yes, then you're walking the path most will never find. And if you've had an experience like this, a time where silent self-growth rewrote your story, I invite you to share it, not for applause, but as a testament to the quiet revolution within you. Chapter 7. Stirring their doubts. People crave certainty. They build narratives about others and about themselves in order to feel secure. They tell themselves who you are, what you'll tolerate, how far they can push. They tell themselves they know your limits, your emotions, your boundaries. And as long as you act predictably, their internal story holds. But when you step back, when you change the pattern, when you no longer respond the way they expect, the certainty begins to crack. And that's where the doubt seeps in. Doubt is not always negative. Sometimes it is the necessary space between who they thought you were and who you have become. Doubt, in this sense, is a mirror. When you stop giving someone access to your thoughts, your energy, your effort, they begin to question. What changed? Was it something I did? Did I go too far? Or did I simply never see them clearly to begin with? That internal storm? That unsettling fog? That is you, not through words but through absence, disrupting their perception. And it is powerful. But this isn't about playing games. This is not manipulation. It's not about making them chase or crafting confusion to assert dominance. No. This is about becoming unrelatable to old versions of yourself. It's about no longer cooperating with stories that kept you small, soft-spoken, dependent. It's about outgrowing the costume someone else made for you and letting the silence do the explaining. When someone cannot predict your next move, they are forced to pay attention. And often, for the first time, they begin to analyze the moments they once dismissed. Your silence, your distance, your calm refusal to engage in old arguments, your absence from spaces you once filled. Suddenly they are listening, but not to your words, to your energy. Doubt can either spark insecurity or inspire respect. The outcome depends on the quality of the bond and the maturity of the other person. Some will feel threatened. Some will get angry. Some will lash out. But others will awaken. They will realize that you are no longer playing your part in their narrative, and that if they want to stay connected to you, they must meet you where you are now, not where you used to be. In this way, doubt becomes an invitation. Rethink your story about me. Reconsider your treatment of me. Reevaluate your place in my life. And it forces them to either grow with you or fall behind.
You will know a lot about someone based on how they respond to the quiet space your growth creates. The ones who love your light but cannot handle your shadow will shrink away. The ones who only needed you when you were predictable will feel lost, but the ones who see you in all your complexity, who are willing to sit in uncertainty, to ask better questions, to grow through the discomfort, they will stay, and they will become worthy of the new version of you.
You must understand, when you stir someone's doubts, you also clarify your own truth. You become the storm they did not see coming. Not loud, not wild, but a slow-moving front of transformation that alters the atmosphere of the connection. And that doubt, that unsettled feeling they carry now, that is what you used to carry. In the moments when they were distant, in the nights when you overthought everything, in the questions that went unanswered, now they sit with it, and it is not revenge, it is balance. So do not fear the discomfort you create by stepping back. That discomfort is truth breaking through routine. And if they cannot handle the new depth, the new weight, the new boundaries, then they were never ready for the real you. If you've ever seen someone become unsettled, not because of what you said, but because of what you stopped saying, tell us. What changed when the dynamic shifted? What did the doubt stir in them? And what did it clarify in you? Chapter 8. Mastering Nonchalance. True confidence doesn't need to declare itself. It doesn't need to defend, to prove, to announce its value. It's simply it. And nowhere is this more evident than in the art of nonchalance, the subtle mastery of caring deeply without showing desperation, of holding space without grasping, of being fully present and entirely free. Nonchalance is not about apathy.
That's the mistake most people make. Apathy is the absence of care.
Nonchalance is the presence of composure. You still care. You still feel. But you are no longer ruled by those feelings. They move within you, not through others. You've pulled the power back into yourself. To master nonchalance is to walk into a room without needing to be noticed, to speak only when you have something meaningful to say, not to fill silence or seek validation. It is to love someone fully while knowing you do not own them. It is to hold a boundary without anger, to make a decision without over-explaining. It is grace under pressure, stillness under scrutiny. The Stoics knew this well. They taught that detachment is not disconnection, it is discipline, to care without clinging, to feel without losing yourself, to engage without the need to control the outcome. This mindset changes everything in relationships. When you no longer need to win the argument, but instead choose peace. When you no longer fear someone leaving, because you've already built a life that doesn't collapse in their absence. When your value is no longer tied to their recognition, but to your alignment. Nonchalance allows you to shift from the reactive to the deliberate. You do not jump to reply to every message. You do not spiral when plans change. You do not explain every choice, not because you're dismissive, but because your peace no longer depends on being understood. You are no longer dancing for approval. You're simply walking your path. And this energy, it's magnetic. Because most people are used to others bending, breaking, chasing. When you do not chase, when you do not flinch, when you are not shaken by the storms they stir, they feel your strength. Not the loud, performative strength, but the quiet, unshakable kind. The kind that says, I do not need you to stay, but you are welcome to, if you can match my peace. That energy speaks louder than any confession. It makes people wonder. It makes them slow down. They begin to see you not as a possession, not as a certainty, but as a mystery, steady, whole, and unchained. Nonchalance is also protection. When people try to provoke you, manipulate you, or test you, your calm becomes your shield. You do not rise to every bait. You do not explain your calm. You let them spin in their own drama, while you remain sovereign. But here's the subtle beauty. Nonchalance does not mean disengagement. You can still be kind, still be warm, still be deeply invested. But your identity no longer hinges on outcomes. If it works out, you remain whole. If it does not, you remain whole. That is the power of the one who needs nothing. Not because they are empty, but because they are full. This kind of quiet self-possession is rare. And yet, it is available to anyone willing to build it. Slowly, through moments of temptation, where you resist the urge to prove your worth, through moments of rejection, where you choose to hold your dignity, through moments of confusion, where you anchor in your inner clarity, not their chaos. Ask yourself, do I speak because I have something to say? Or because I need to be heard? Do I act from grounded purpose or from fear of being forgotten? If you've ever stepped into this calm, this elegant nonchalance that confuses and attracts at once, I'd love to hear your story. What happened when you stopped proving and simply were? Chapter 9. Reclaiming your strength. There comes a moment in every journey when you stop asking the world to give you back what it took, and instead you rise and reclaim it yourself. That is the moment of return. The quiet turn inward. The steady reclaiming of your strength. You may have given it away, slowly, unknowingly, piece by piece. You gave your power to the person who ghosted you, waiting for a message that never came. You gave your self-worth to the opinions of others, tailoring your actions for applause that always felt just out of reach. You gave your time, your attention, your effort, not because they were deserved, but because you hoped that giving more would finally make you enough. But strength does not come from being everything to everyone. It comes from knowing who you are when no one is clapping. It comes from honoring your boundaries, not begging others to respect them, from being loyal to your values, even if that means walking alone. To reclaim your strength is not an act of defiance. It is an act of remembrance. You are not rebuilding. You are returning to what was always there, beneath the self-doubt, beneath the anxiety, beneath the need for validation. You are not becoming someone new. You are shedding who you never really were. It begins with a decision. A small one, perhaps. To not reply to the message that feels disrespectful. To not check their page to see if they miss you. To not shrink just to make someone else more comfortable. Each small moment is a vote for your own sovereignty. And over time, those votes add up. They build momentum. They change your posture, your tone, your presence. People begin to notice. You're no longer bending. You're no longer reaching. You no longer light yourself on fire to keep others warm. And at first, they may not understand. They may accuse you of changing. But you haven't changed. You've simply stopped abandoning yourself. Strength, real strength, is not loud. It does not demand recognition. It does not need to dominate. It is quiet, rooted, unshakable. It shows up in how you walk away from chaos, in how you remain composed when tested, in how you no longer give energy to things that do not nourish you. And yes, it is lonely at times. Because reclaiming your strength often means losing the people who only liked you when you were weak. The ones who loved you when you were convenient. But better solitude with integrity than company that costs your peace. Do not wait for someone to return your power to you. They never will, because it was never truly theirs to begin with. It was always yours, borrowed, misplaced, forgotten. Now it is time to take it back. So here is the moment. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to make a show of it. Just rise. Quietly. Consistently. Honor who you are. And if you fall back into old patterns, forgive yourself, and rise again. That too is strength. Have you ever had to reclaim yourself from a place where you felt lost? What did that return feel like? Bitter, sweet, or both? Share your reflections in the comments. You never know who might need your story to find their own way back. Chapter 10. The Unbreakable Spirit. There is a core within you that no one can touch. It does not matter who walked away. It does not matter who doubted you. It does not matter what storm tried to drown you, or what fire tried to burn you down. At the center of it all, when the noise fades and the crowd disappears, there is a place inside you that remains untouched. That place is your unbreakable spirit. It is not something you're born with, nor something the world can hand you. It is something you forge through trials, through heartbreak, through silence, through solitude, through every moment you were counted out and still stood up anyway. Your unbreakable spirit is not about never feeling pain. It is about allowing pain to move through you, without letting it define you. It is not about never falling. It is about rising one more time than you fall. Not to impress, not to perform, but because rising has become your nature. And if you're here now, reading these words, listening to this voice, then somewhere along the way you've already proven it. You've kept going when you weren't sure it was worth it. You've sat with yourself in the quiet and found the courage to stay. You've walked through rejection, confusion, betrayal, and yet you're still here. Maybe bruised, maybe tired, but undefeated. That is what it means to be unbreakable. Not perfect, not fearless, but whole in spite of everything that tried to fragment you. It's easy to give credit to resilience when things get better, when the phone rings, when the apology comes, when the door opens. But the real strength is found in the space before that. When there's no evidence things will improve and you still refuse to give up on yourself. The unbreakable spirit is built in the shadows, when no one sees, when the world turns cold, when your own mind becomes a battlefield and yet you keep walking, not because you are sure of the path, but because you refuse to surrender to despair. This strength isn't taught. It's earned through every silent night, through every quiet decision to not give in, through every tear wiped without witnesses. And one day, people will ask how you did it, how you stayed calm, how you never folded, how you learned to carry yourself with such depth and quiet command. And you will smile, not because it was easy, but because you know what it cost. You will realize you were never waiting to be saved. You were simply becoming the kind of person who no longer needed rescuing. The spirit inside you does not need to roar. It does not need to conquer. It only needs to remain intact, aligned, steady. So when the world tests you, and it will, return to that center, to that unshakable core. Let others misunderstand you. Let them underestimate you. Let them wonder, because you have nothing to prove. You are already complete. If you've found this place before, that quiet invincibility, that steady soul under pressure, I invite you to write just one phrase in the comments. I am unbreakable. Not for me, not for others, but as a vow to yourself. Conclusion. In a world that screams for attention, you chose the strength of stepping back. And in that step, silent, deliberate, unmoved, you made them question everything. Who you are, what you deserve, what they lost, But most importantly, you remembered who you are. This journey isn't about being distant to punish or withholding to control. It's about reclaiming your center, owning your presence, and knowing that your silence, your stillness, your non-reaction, those are not weaknesses. They are strategies of the wise. If something in this video resonated with you, if you found your strength again, or recognized a pattern you've outgrown, take a moment to let it land. Drop a comment, share your experience, and if you're walking this path with us, don't walk alone. Subscribe, join the growing circle of minds who know strength is not loud. Strength listens first. You're not just becoming harder to reach, you're becoming impossible to replace.